Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show where I make a game that you shoot stuff that tries to kill you as well. With special guest star today, Procedural Generation. Yes, he's back and better than ever. I know, it's been a little bit. But don't fret, I've been going ham trying to figure out some procedural city generation and it's looking so cool and well, okay, maybe it's not perfect yet, but it's been a long journey to get here and a lot of interesting stuff to go through regarding procedural generation. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So one of the big points of contention in a horde shooter is the inevitable repetitive nature of the game over time, but there's a lot of interesting ways to combat this problem, such as procedural generation. Deep Rock Galactic, for example, goes about this problem with procedural maps, which does a pretty good job of making the game feel fresh each time you play. And since Scavenger is also a game about going out and exploring and stuff, it'd be nice if every time you did that, you were actually exploring and finding different places. Now, the extent of how far this can go yet beyond cities and towns, I'm not too sure. I wanted to use the voxel plugin, but it seems to be in kind of a bit of a limbo now. But for now, some cities will do. So obviously that's great and all, but how do we reenact Genesis and create something from nothing? Well, I got one word for you. Roads. I mean, roads are the backbone of every city when it comes down to it. It connects places to other places and allows people to traverse in ways that actually make some sort of sense. Unless you live in like Venice or something, holy shit. So it seems like a good place to start. Now, there are many ways to generate a road network apparently, but at first I thought I'd start spawning some roads in and randomly placing intersections that spawn more roads in the different directions and so on. This kinda worked, but eventually ran into a problem where roads would collide into each other and overlap, and well, it was kind of a mess. I spent a while though trying to fix this, and I got close a few times, but ultimately had to scrap the idea since going that route just kept becoming more and more complicated, mostly because the main problem with that was that it was too random. See, procedural generation is technically random, but it's random with rules. But wait, how does that work? Well, this is how I ended up doing it the second go around. Instead of spawning one road and seeing where it goes, I first defined an area where the roads can spawn in so that I can constrain or extend the city limits to my liking. Before, we just kind of had to spawn less roads in hopes that it wouldn't extend too far. So then instead of spawning the roads first, we spawn the intersections first. So we start with one intersection, placed at random in the city limits, then spawn another intersection a random distance off of one of the directions that it could go in, and then connect those two with roads. And we kind of just repeat that process, picking random directions until we have the amount of intersections we want. This makes the road network a little bit more sensible and more controllable and predictable so that when problems do arise, like colliding roads and whatnot, we can easily accommodate for that. Now, this was way easier said than done, however, and this still took pretty long to get right. A lot of calculations were involved and the graph was getting so big it was kind of scary, but after a while, we got it working. Now, roads are great and all, but it kind of looks a little barren without any buildings. So at first I just tried to see if I could spawn the buildings off the sides of the roads, and this kind of worked, but it didn't really give me much control of how I could spawn things, so a different solution was in order. So in comes what I'm calling building squares. Yeah, I know, it's a pretty great name, right? Basically, these squares can be dynamically scaled to fit into the gaps that the city blocks create, and they can kind of turn into anything they want, like parks, neighborhoods, buildings with alleyways, all that sort of stuff. For now, though, I just have buildings spawning on the sides of it. That part also, for some reason, was a pain in the ass for a few days because math hard, but I eventually got it. So excited to put this system to good use finally. Unfortunately, I started to realize that I might have been acting a little bit too premature on the idea and realized all the city blocks weren't actually making perfect squares. And I do have a possible solution in mind for this, and I did start to map that out, but ultimately that's gonna have to wait until the next update because that's another rabbit hole that will definitely take a lot more time to iron out. Yes, I know. I really wanted to get something resembling a city for this update, and even though I kind of made it sound easy in this video, all this took an insanely long time to figure out and implement correctly, which obviously doesn't really surprise me since I've never really done any of this kind of stuff before anyway. Either way though, it's been extremely interesting and I've obviously learned a lot from it. So going forward, it should be easier for me to figure this stuff out. At least, hopefully, all this math has been kind of killing me. And yes, I know it also has kind of prevented me from adding another weapon like I want to each update, which kind of sucks. But to make up for it, I plan on probably just doing a whole update focusing on adding new weapons. So speaking of which, if you guys want to keep up to date, I do have a Discord I've been posting some more semi-regular updates in, and plan to hopefully post more in there now. And on top of that, to compensate for the distance between these devlogs, I think I'm going to try and start streaming now so that you guys can see me bang my head against the wall with this stuff while it's happening. So that's twitch.tv/bestjoester. Go give it a follow and slam the bell icon. I don't have much of a concrete schedule just yet, but I'll be posting in the Discord when I go live as well, so you guys don't miss it. And if you're able to stop by, I'll be glad to hang out with you guys over there. I know a lot of new faces have shown up around here since the last video, and I just want to say thanks to everyone who's shown up and subscribed. Really appreciate it. I know you've kind of caught me in a dry spell, but I'm obviously going to try and not have that happen again. But just know if it does, there's probably something that I'm violently hacking away at, as this has been. But anyways, I really appreciate everyone who's shown interest over time, all the way from the beginning to people who are just coming in. I'm glad this is a game that interests you guys as well, and there's definitely more to come. Anyways, I gotta go figure out some more fucking maths and whatnot, so go check out that other stuff, and I'll see you guys soon.